We're going to be recording, and I'll post it later. So if I got to
Okay,
edit.
I got you.
All right. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Mulder, and tonight I have a very special guest and friend of mine, the one, the only, Algo Cowboy. How you doing, my friend?
Superb. How about yourself?
Cannot complain. Cannot complain. I tell you, I've been following your stuff, for years. I learned about you through V, the gorilla economist, the great primate himself, the simian, as he likes to call himself. And I tell you, I've been following his work for years, and it's because of the respect I have for his opinion on things. When you, and I think you had a partner by the name of Z at one time, I guess it was what, like 2017 or 2018?
That's
We
right. Actually, it was the four of us. It was me, Z, V the gorilla, and one of his guys named Frank.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I remember, and you guys were doing trades, and I have to admit, you came up with some damn good winners. I did. I'm one of those guys. I wouldn't say I'm a gambler, but I really enjoyed, doing the scalping. I guess what they call it. What's the technical term? Well, not technical term, but just basically, just following the ups and the downs of a coin, and buying low, selling high, and I was able to really make a nice little bit of change over the weekend, one weekend, just doing that on one of the coins that you guys recommended. It had, luckily, it had a lot of volatility to it, and that really got me sold on this stuff. And then there was I think it's before I met you or before I started talking to you, I found out about a coin called BitShares, and I bought that at like 8 cents. No, it's like 5 cents, and I sold it at 80 cents. And this was like in a matter of 2 weeks, and that's when I got the bug. That's when I got
Mm-hmm.
the bug, and so, but yeah, I've mentioned crypto all the time on the show. About I just love it. I love the technology behind it, and I got to say, I think V said something along the lines. He was joking, but he said that blockchain is basically the greatest invention since fire. And I mean, and I agree with him. I think what makes it unique is when they're able to solve the double spend uh, problem they were having with crypto. Is that correct?
Yeah, the double spend problem was the main concern.
Yeah. And so after that, and once they were able to solve that problem, that's when crypto, I guess, became a reality. Now, it, tell me, Cowboy. I mean, what got you into crypto? What made you go? I know everybody has their own story. What got you into it?
Well, I wish I would have gotten into it the first time that I looked into it, which was in 2012, because then I would probably be on a yacht with my new friends, as who's that comedian? Ron White says that.
Uh-huh.
But basically, what had happened was, it was an article, and I came across it because I got into like Sovereign Man and some of those types of um, off the beaten path type situations. There, this is back in like that same time, 2011, 2012. I was starting to wake up a little bit, to put it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up just going through this, going through that. And that's when I saw this Bitcoin. I'm like, what is this? Like some new kind of money. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm open to things. Um, let's take a look at it. Well, as I did, I called my cousin and I said, hey, this Bitcoin thing, he's a tech guy, my little cousin. And I said, hey, I was thinking about maybe like using my laptop to mine some of this stuff. And he goes, at this point, like it costs more money to mine it than it actually is worth. And so and at that time, there really was no way to know it was going to do what it did, right? Like,
Right.
I didn't really understand enough. I mean, I was trading at that point, I was trading silver on margin. That was my whole thing at that point. So I come from a precious metals background, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got that in a family. So anyhow, that was the first brush with it, and I skipped past it. And of course, years later, it was right about that 2016 election cycle. So you're talking about Clinton and Trump, right? And it's the whole Trump thing seemed to really kind of wake a lot of people up in a way, right? I mean, how do I say this? The news cycle got to be insane. Just everybody started to get like more and more divided, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it's just blockchain came up, and I'm like, blockchain, huh? It came up as in the back of my mind. Well, it wasn't much longer later where I left my insurance company and I went back into working in the alternative energy space, natural gas, and I was a mechanic. I was actually an industrial natural gas compressor mechanic, so I was working on the pretty large compressors for like fill stations and industrial purposes, and operation maintenance, so on. And at that point, I moved over to installation, so I was on the construction side and I was running the union teams. But the contract was up. The contract was up in a few months. So I started calling all my friends. I'm like, I don't want to go back to insurance. I spent 15 years there. I like the alternative fuel space, but at this point, it's not steady enough. I need to find something that's at least get a supplement that while I'm off contract. And I have a background. My degree is actually in econometrics, which is like calculus based statistics, linear regression models. I was at a top 10 school for that. So numbers and math, that's in my background for sure. So when it comes to finance, it was pretty kind of an easy thing to look into. Already trading silver on margin in very small amounts in the early 2010s, right? So
Hmm.
Bitcoin, I'm asking one of my buddies is like, yeah, I can get you a job here at this company, whatever. I had a few ways I could go. And one of my buddies said, well, until you figure it out, why don't you look at investing in Bitcoin? I'm like, I remember Bitcoin. And I told him those two stories I just told you right now. And then we talked, and this guy, he swooped up Bitcoin. He spent $10,000 back when Bitcoin dropped down after the MT Gox failure.
Hmm.
So if for anybody who remembers that whole thing, so
Oh.
he's got 100 some odd Bitcoin, the bastard, and so he's sitting pretty on it. But yeah, he makes good money anyway. He doesn't care. So the point is that I looked into it, and when I started looking at Bitcoin, the first place it took me was Cliff and Bix and Gus and
Right.
Bix. It was Bix Weird, really. It was Bix's show, Bix and Gus, Bix and Cliff, and I started moving over to Cliff. And at that time, before all of that, before any of that happened, I was actually listening to. I did a brief brush, like of course, when you start questioning reality, it's going to lead you to Alex Jones. However, his whole thing was just a little too emotional for me. He's just kind of just so brash and what's the word, inflammatory, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
I'm not saying he. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like a bull in a china shop kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying he's wrong or right or whatever. I'm just saying that it didn't really match my vibe, right?
Right.
So, and I guess there was a guy who was somehow very loosely affiliated with him, Mike Rivero. He had some pretty good reporting. And then somehow the YouTube algos, once I started looking at Bitcoin and Bix and all that, it flew me over to Rogue, right? So at
Right.
that point, now I'm into, trading. Now I actually got into Ether Delta. Now, do you remember Ether Delta? Were you ever on that exchange?
No, I was not. I started out with Coinbase, and I think I kind of progressed over to Binance.
Okay. I did the same thing, except in between I hit Ether Delta.
Okay.
And the reason I did was because Cliff High was talking about PPT. So his data that he had, his whole linguistics data, that popped out Populous token. So, and it sounded like a good idea, the whole concept behind the token. So I got in touch with the Populous, the actual people who own it, who run it,
Right.
who started it, and I helped them build their website. I wrote the copy for their website, and so I kind of got involved in that. And but what I this was a complete happenstance thing, and we kind of found out after not too long that there were some problems with the company, and I went ahead and told all my friends, hey, I've got a stop loss here, and I got out and I got into Populous pretty low, around the $1 mark, and it went up to about $80. I didn't get out that high, but I got out, nice and high.
Hmm.
Well, the point is that what the real the seminal moment, right? The moment that kind of got me into the algorithm side of things is that Ether Delta was an exchange. It is an on-chain, off-chain exchange. So it was like a blockchain-based exchange on the Ethereum blockchain. For
Hmm.
people who are kind of new to crypto, Ethereum was designed as like if crypto was the train, Ethereum was the tracks. So a lot of people like build their coins. Their actual coin technology is built on the Ethereum blockchain. Probably
Right.
more coins than anything else by far. Now you've got Solana and a few other competitors, right?
Hmm.
So, but Ether Delta was all the Ethereum coins. So any Ethereum coin that existed, any ERC20 Ethereum based coin was on that exchange. Now, because it was a blockchain based exchange, the blocks updated every 10 to 14 seconds. So there was no robot that could be faster than me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because 10 to 14 seconds. I mean, a human can act in that time.
Right.
So PPT in particular, that was an asset that had a lot of volume on EtherDelta because it hadn't gone to Binance. Right. Binance, at first, Binance didn't exist when I first got PPT. It was all there. And Cliff High and his group pushed a lot of action. So, and what was interesting about PPT was it was one of the highest volume coins. It was a consistent top 5 volume coin on EtherDelta. And on top of that, it had anywhere from a 1 to a 5% spread. So, I mean, even a 1% spread, there's so many opportunities, but you need a fair amount of volume. So basically, I built a spread arbitrage algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know what a spread was. I did not know what arbitrage was, and I did not know what an algorithm was. So what I did was I dissected this order book, not knowing anything about order books. Like I had to start from scratch. I'd never really traded like that. When I traded silver, I just would buy, basically by making phone calls. I mean, real long-term margin trades. Like nothing, I wasn't on any exchanges, none of that. So I just from scratch learned how exchanges work, order books worked, and there were some real interesting aspects to that order book. Very interesting aspects. And long story short, I was able to trade maybe $1,200 back and forth over the spread, and I was able to do that in a way that I remember after a week my money doubled, and I'm like, wait a minute, holy moly, there's something here.
Right.
And I was able to do that, but unfortunately, that loophole got closed because CryptoKitties. You remember CryptoKitties?
No, I do not. Before my time.
It's the first NFT. This is like 2017. So CryptoKitties came out, and I never even participated in it. I couldn't tell you what it is. All I know is these people make these little CryptoKitties and they trade them, and then
Okay.
they go up in value and down. So it's an NFT. It's like the first one,
Right.
and it was so popular it clogged up the Ethereum blockchain. So Ether Delta ground to a halt, and I couldn't operate anymore. So I had to move back because I had already tried kind of using indicators and trading and doing it that way. I'd already tried that, but I was able to make so much money spread arbitraging. I was like, well, why I'll just do this, you know? So that's how that all happened. That's how it all went down. I ended up going back into the trading, and I developed pretty good trade method. And any trade method that is just like, hey, if these rules line up, then you execute the trade. Any of those is an algorithm. So when you hear the word algorithm, do not get scared. It's just a method. Tying your shoes is an algorithm. It's all algorithms. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So I developed a very basic algorithm like any trader would develop for the crypto market. And then we did our trades that you were a part of that, where you got to watch us. We don't really we don't do recommendations. We don't tell people what to do. Nothing we say is investment advice. Everything we do is all based on entertainment and educational purposes, mind you. So we didn't recommend any coins to anybody, but people just got to watch us trade. In fact, the whole thing was literally called Watch Us Trade. And
Mm-hmm.
then we did another version of that called Chart Snipers. But anyway, we did all that. And then the crypto market fell apart, right? And we
Yes, it
were
did.
doing spot crypto. We weren't doing any kind of derivatives. We weren't going short. We were just buying spot crypto. And when the crypto market was blowing up like that, that's great. Everything goes up. You just look for the right point to buy in. And if you have the right algorithm to know when it's going to rise, then you get to make your money, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you got to wait a few months. If the market goes down, there's nothing to do. You got to hold off because you can't go short. So that was that. And because the crypto market died, all that we went in ahead and hung it up. I turned our chart snipers into something free. I did basically the same thing, just kind of on a lower scale, and now it's just a group of friends. That's what that turned into. Um, so that was that. That's my history with crypto. I moved into forex after that in 2019 because forex has consistent opportunities. I also learned how to have a setup to where I could legally trade crypto derivatives because they started to tighten down on that too. They started to make it hard for Americans to trade that, but I figured that out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of, and then because I was profitable during that time, when the market changed, my algorithm no longer worked. So I began to not be profitable. So I took everything and set it aside. And I hired a mentor, spent thousands of dollars. and somebody taught me how to actually build algorithms and trade them and build a trading plan and treat it like a business and, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, over the years, all the tools I've gained, all the money I've won and lost, I have made far more money than I've lost. And the amounts I've lost would, you know, they might make your skin crawl, but, that's just any trader goes through that. So, all that knowledge, what I also have a background is I was a private tutor and I had a lot of students right at the end of college. And so I understand how to teach. And I've been a trainer in some companies as well.
Right.
So, I take my teaching ability and the knowledge I've got, and we have created Algo Factory where we teach people to fish instead of handing them the fish. So that brings us to present day. That's Algo Factory.
Right. And yeah, like I said, when I first looked into this thing, frankly, I it's a little intimidating, for somebody that really doesn't have a lot of. I can get around on a computer, but I'm not a computer whiz kid, and that kind of thing when it comes to, setting up programs and what have you. But I have a guy who's an engineer, and this is right up his, bailiwick, and so, he's kind of basically I'm financing it for him, and he's doing all the designing of the algorithm, based upon your lessons on this thing. And so far, he's been really impressed. So the only thing that really gets him or slows him down is learning the lingo, certain things. And he said, once he learns the lingo, once he learns the language, then he'll be able to, he'll be able to get a feel of what he's trying to do when he's setting up these algos. And I mean, I'm looking at this thing right now. You're absolutely 100% correct. You're basically teaching people how to become their own traders, their own, giving them, like you said, you're giving them the tools. You're teaching them the tools where they can do this themselves. And that's
Yeah. Now
not,
I do post if I take a trade and it's like a swing trade where it's not some, I day trade a lot, so I'm in and out in an hour or two. But if I have a swing trade that might last a day or two or three, then I'll actually show everybody that. But remember, it's not for people to follow that trade. Their research needs to tell them that that's a good trade, not mine. They need to make their own decision. But my trades are actually posted in there as well, both in crypto and in forex. But as and as you've alluded to, I've got a video series, 4 different classes. They teach the very basics of trading, and then you have the next level that teaches how to build algorithms, and it teaches you what the indicators are. The next level, of course, is treating it like a business, and then you've got trading psychology. The
mhm.
lingo itself, if you ask me, I know you didn't, but if you ask me, the best way to learn the lingo is just to immerse yourself.
Yeah.
And we start at 8:30 EST in the morning, and it's free on YouTube at the Algo Factory channel. And you can go on there and look for half an hour while we go over the very basics. Every day is something different. It's based on usually it's based on questions from people in our paid group.
Hmm.
And then we may open it up to super chats once we get YouTube kind of up and running in that sense. And then we get off YouTube, and then for another hour, we go through our live lab every day. And that live lab is people who are available at that time. Now I record these, you can see them later, but people who want to participate can be on that as well, ask all their questions. I go through some charts, I'll go through Forex, I'll go through whatever charts they want to see. If I take a trade, I explain that. And that goes for an hour. So there's an hour and a half that me and V the Gorilla, both of us are on every single day. And as you know, V has that kind of high level information from some real high level people in the world. So he'll be able to impart some of that there. And he's given us some tidbits he does not give anywhere else on that show.
Oh yeah. I gotta say, this guy does have he does have inside baseball, and that is for
Yeah.
sure. And
And none of it illegal, not inside
no,
information, but as you said, inside baseball is the right way to put it.
yeah, and what it is basically just he's just giving you a lay of the land of the reality of the situation, not what you hear on the news, not what you read on some of these, or read on some of these blog sites or whatever. I mean, it's like he's talking to real people, real time, and giving you real time, conditions of the world, and that's invaluable. Information is power, and he's proven it over and over again.
Oh yeah, he's more right on the macro than anybody else I've followed.
Yeah, and that's what impressed me about V. And you know, uh, eh, you know, it's because of V I found out about crypto. I think I told you the story off the air. Cliff High. He was doing an interview with Cliff High back when I think he was on Freedom Slips Radio, if I remember. He was on every Friday night for like an hour, hour and a half, and and I never missed a show because it just because I'm hearing something I wasn't hearing from anybody else, and I'm just like hearing the straight shit. I mean, just the way things really are, and
Love it.
oh yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd rather have the truth than a lie any day. I don't care how bad the truth is. At least you know what the hell you're dealing with, right? But
Oh, well, I'm going to add to that one once we get a little farther into this talk.
okay, fantastic. But anyway, he was talking to Cliff High, and they were going back and forth. And Cliff High was talking about the blockchain, and he was mentioning this thing called Bitcoin. I never heard of Bitcoin before. It was just something I like you. It fascinated me the theory behind it. I mean, how in the hell can you take a bunch of zeros and ones and this thing has value, and people are willing to accept it as money? And that kind of, like I said, it was kind of the beginning days where you could buy what 20,000 Bitcoin for a pizza or something. Some out,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so that's back when I heard this thing. I said, "Oh, okay, this sounds great. I don't think it's a gimmick. I appreciate the science behind it, and and the fact that it is able to overcome the biggest problem they said they were having, which was double spending. In other words, you can't take that same amount of Bitcoin and use it over and over again. I mean, once it's sent to the receiver, it's over with. The blockchain verifies that a certain amount of value went from point A to point B, and that's I thought, okay, fantastic. That's brilliant. That's some super stuff, and but that's because of that got my interest into Bitcoin, and I bought my very first Bitcoin for $730 off of Coinbase. This had to have been like the beginning of I think it was 2017, and when the matter of a few months, it went up to like past the price of gold. I mean, I said, "Oh shit, this is interesting." And then finally, it got up to like $2,300, and I said, I'm gonna prove to myself this is real money." I got on to the internet and I looked for a metals dealer, and they're out of Nevada. It was called JM Bullion. I'm gonna give them a plug here because I think they're great.
Oh, yeah, they're a
J
big company. They're a good company.
Oh yeah, and they accepted Bitcoin as payment for metals. I said, okay, I'm gonna try this. I sent them about $300 worth of Bitcoin, and I got back within 2 days a roll of silver. I think it was silver dollars, Standing Liberty silver dollars. I had it in my hand. I physically turned zeros and ones, or I turned zeros and ones into physical metals. It was in my hand. That was the day it proved to me it was real money.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man.
Yeah, I,
That's something else. That's a feeling right there, huh?
yeah, it is. I mean, it is. And okay, now that kind of leads to the next question. Sort of like not what gives money value. And people have asked me that question, and I've asked it myself. What gives money value?
Or are you asking me?
Yeah, I know I'm sort of being,
I'd say if Jim Cramer says it's valuable. No, I'm just kidding. I'm, I'm
oh
joking.
man, do the exact opposite, you'll be a winner.
They actually there's an ETF that's the opposite Jim Cramer ETF. I don't know if
Oh
you know
yeah,
about that.
yeah, I've heard this. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I I have. I wonder. I think he's just a spokesman. I always follow. Okay, you can tell who somebody on the news or how the news is being tilted as to who the advertisers are. Brought to you by Pfizer. Do I have to say anything more? And
Nope.
no. And like I said, that's and people don't realize that. Follow the money. But yeah, and I always said, when people say, "Well, what gives money value?" Yeah, yeah, it's backed by gold, but still in reality, it's a piece of paper. It just says it gives you a guarantee to a certain amount of gold that is worth a certain amount of precious metals, for example. And yeah, but the only reason why that piece of paper that we have in our pockets today, the only reason why it maintains any value, no matter how little it is, the only reason why it has any value is because we say it's so. We in our society, we say that this certain piece of paper with these certain amount of numbers has a certain amount of value, and that's the reason why you're able to live in this society. It's because those pieces of paper. And but again, zeros and ones. Getting back to the crypto, why do zeros and ones have value? And I was talking to Sorry, look, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, no, I know you kind of asked me what it was. I made a joke about Jim Cramer.
Yeah.
So I mean, here's the thing about zeros and ones, right?
Hmm.
Um, let's compare it to gold because Bitcoin is often compared to gold.
Hmm.
So gold is it's a hunk of metal. There's only so much that comes out of the earth every year. So
Hmm.
it's a finite supply. It's a scarcity, right? So basically gold works as a placeholder
Hmm.
because it's rare and it's scarce. So an ounce of gold is going to pretty much buy relatively the same amount of stuff no matter where you go. Definitely within the same order of magnitude. So yeah, maybe gold's worth a little more in this country than it is in that country. You could buy more, whatever, gasoline with gold or even silver. But in a sense, it's just a placeholder. So now another way of saying a placeholder is a ledger. Because what's wealth, right? Now there's a
Hmm.
really good book written by my uncle, and it's called Inclined to Liberty, and he explains it real well what real wealth is. And you can go into Adam Smith and Wealth of Nations and kind of find some info there too. But to keep it really simple, wealth is really the, gold is not wealth. It's a medium of exchange. Crypto is a medium of exchange. Dollars are a medium of exchange, right? Not necessarily inherently valuable because dollars really aren't. They're a currency. They're not even money. There's a difference there too. Gold is money. So anyway, cryptocurrency is a currency. So what we use these for is we use them because they act as a placeholder or a ledger. But what's wealth? Wealth is different. You take a desert island scenario, right? And you got two guys on a desert island. One of them knows how to make furniture, we'll say, to make that life a little more comfortable. Like he can make a hut, he can make chairs, whatever. The other guy makes arrows, right? Like bows and arrows and weapons, and they can hunt. So what they can do is the guy who knows how to make shelter, excuse me, the guy knows how to make shelter. He has a knowledge to do that for less time involved than it takes the hunter to make shelter, right?
Hmm.
The hunter has the knowledge on how to gather food in less time and effort because of his knowledge than the shelter guy. So the shelter guy might spend, let's just say, 100 hours building a shelter, and then the hunter guy might spend 100 hours getting enough food for a month or whatever the number is, right?
Hmm.
So they're trading time for time, and they're trading utility for utility because that shelter has a certain amount of utility. When the storm comes, that shelter is going to save you. When you're uncomfortable, that chair is going to make your life better. It'll be better for your health. Obviously, food is going to nourish you, things like that. And it's a voluntary exchange, right?
Hmm.
So here's the problem with that. That's a barter system. So, let's look at a classic barter system where it's like, one guy has cows, the other guy has eggs, right? Well, how are you going to get a whole cow for some eggs? Pretty hard to do, right? A beef where I'm at is worth about $1,200 to $1,400 for a good beef. Now, that much worth of eggs at $8 for a dozen is going to be 800 dozen, something like that.
Hmm.
800 dozen eggs, that's going to go bad. You can't store that, right? So now you can use credit systems and things like that. And actually, credit has been really used for a much longer time than people understand. But the problem with credit is people have to honor it. So you got the cattle farmer can give a beef to the egg farmer, right? The cattle rancher, I should say, can give a beef to the egg homesteader, to use proper terms. However, now that egg homesteader is going to owe another 800 dozen or more than that to the cattle farmer. And is he going to own up to that? And that's the real question, right?
Hmm.
Well, to get rid of that, we can have currency. We can have everybody agree that a certain item is going to be worth a certain amount of something else. So if that cattle rancher wants to sell his beef for $1,200 worth of gold, he can break that gold up or silver. He can break those up into smaller pieces and buy the eggs as he needs them because he can't just trade a cattle for those eggs. Those eggs are going to go bad, right?
Hmm.
So
Right.
the medium of exchange allows for the barter system to be. It makes the barter system obsolete. And in an economy with a large amount of people, this is where it's going to work better. A large amount being 50 people, it doesn't have to be anything huge.
Hmm.
So the reason that gold works is because it's a placeholder. Bitcoin is a ledger. Okay. And so far, no one's been able to crack it. It's been a $2 trillion market. I think now it's a trillion or below. So, I mean, the incentive to crack the code is very big. Can you make $1 trillion or even a few billion by cracking a code? You're going to do it, right? And apparently nobody has because
Hmm.
Bitcoin's still rolling, still trucking.
Yeah.
So, you have $1 trillion incentive to crack that code and it has not been done. So it must be secure. And all the eggheads say it's secure. And the core developers continue to make it secure. So the faith in its security is actually proof in the pudding because it's still secure. So in a credit scenario, right, you have a ledger. And even then you could use they used to have tally sticks where you put certain marks in a stick and then you break the stick in half in a special way. And there's only one way those two sticks can fit together, and that's how you determine the debt. I mean, there's been a million different ways of doing this, right?
Right.
But the problem with the tally sticks, and that was a great situation. I think they used tally sticks in the UK in the 1800s. But the problem is that debts rose really high, and the warehouse that stored the bankers' half of the tally sticks got burned down. Yeah, so I mean, there's a whole bunch of history on our attempt to try to take money away from a precious metals situation because precious metals are not convenient. It's if you want to make a very large purpose or settle a government debt, you have security issues. You got to put the metal on a boat. It's just there are issues with that. So Bitcoin so far is as immutable as metal. So far, it has performed that way. Now, of course, quantum computers come along. Maybe that can go in one way or the other, but those core developers can actually also build to defend against that. So that's long in the future. I don't think that's anytime soon. But that really, I hope that answers the questions in that Bitcoin is immutable, right? You can't go back and change it. That's why that double spend problem was an issue, because double spend means you can change the ledger and say that you didn't spend that Bitcoin and go spend it again,
Hmm.
right? So they solved that with the software. And then, of course, the network of tens of thousands or even millions of miners, I'm sure it's millions, tens of millions of miners out there, they all verify the network. And yeah, you got a few large companies that own most of the miners, but it's enough companies to where it's still relatively decentralized. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and then you start to get into theory that is over my head. So what I just said is the extent of my understanding as to why ones and zeros become money, and I hope that helps along with a little bit of history.
Oh, yes, exactly. And I know for a fact that a certain three-letter agency that's over in a place in Virginia was looking at this stuff heavily. I know one of the people who was around the computer scientists, engineers, what have you, who were investigating crypto back 9, 12 years ago. And he said to me, he said, I could kick myself in the ass for not buying it.
Yep.
It-
Yep.
yeah. and uh, and so I mean he was right there. He was, they were actually looking at stuff. I don't know if they were trying to tear it apart or if they're the ones that actually came up with it, which I don't think so. I don't
Uh,
know. Maybe I'm wrong.
there's another three-letter agency that's even supposedly bigger,
Hmm.
and let's say they have a really large humongous server farm over in Utah, if you know that one.
Yes, I'm aware.
And so that one, supposedly the SHA-256, the hash code, whatever, I'm not a tech guy, but the SHA-256 code came from them.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's the rumor.
That's the room.
Satoshi Nakamoto may not even exist.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's just a phantom. He's just uh, he's just,
He's the face.
yeah, he's the face. Exactly, exactly. He's the Kaiser Sose of the scenario. But no, it's definitely a interesting thing. How the stuff works, and what I'm looking at here, I've had people say, "Oh, it's just a fad, it's a scam, it's tulip bulbs or whatever." Well, if it's such a scam, then how come is it that you have major countries in this on this planet that are willing to exchange, for example, oil for Bitcoin? You have entire countries, who are basically using Bitcoin because their currencies are so screwed up and inflationary. I mean, if it was such a scam, how come is it starting to become embedded in this world?
Well, I mean, look, let's say that I was running the game.
Hmm.
and I did not. I wanted to get all of the crypto before everybody else. Let's say I was on the top of things, right? What would I do? I'd tell everybody else it was a scam,
Hmm. Exactly.
so I could buy it up on the cheap before everybody else gets in.
Yeah. I mean, what was I think it was like 2018 maybe. Uh, let's see. Jamie Dimon said something about Bitcoin was a scam. It just hit 20,000. This is the first time it broke 20,000, and then Jamie Dimon comes out, and what happens? It drops down to around 25 to 3,000. And what was J.P. Morgan doing at that time when it dropped down to 2,500 to 3,000? They were
Add it up. Yeah.
buying it up, and they made a fortune. And
Yeah,
so,
actually, well, the way I heard it was, no, he openly told everybody. He said, "Look, if anybody buys and uses, if any of my employees buy Bitcoin, I'm going to fire you. If
mhm,
any of you trade it, I'm going to fire you." Well, I think V said he knew some traders overseas in the UK who they were laughing about it because they were like an affiliated company, right?
mhm,
They were not exactly JP Morgan, but they were playing with JP Morgan's money. And they were laughing about it. They're like, yeah, we made a fortune.
yeah, exactly. You know, and another thing too. I mean, now we got this thing coming in. We got the Swift system, and now it's being, the world is adopting the brick system. Now, could you kind of tell the audience a little bit what's the difference between Swift and bricks?
Okay. Well, BRICS is a group of nations, stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And what they're doing is they're creating basically a trading block. And I think that trading block is going to be physically manifested in the BRI, which is the Belt and Road Initiative, in which China is going to go ahead and partner with a lot of these other countries, just not only those ones, but many, many countries in building a trade route that will go pretty much around the world with the exception of the United States. Now, they could cooperate with the United States. I think they had a way to do, to go across maybe the Aleutian Strait by rail. I don't know what the plan was, but they figured out it might have been by boat. I have no idea what the route was, but China offered for the United States to be a part of the Belt and Road, and the United States was not interested, or at least the leadership of the United States was not interested. I can't say anything about the rest of the United States, as in the real people or the businesses or anything else, but the leadership was not interested. So the BRICS is a group of nations who are creating a trading bloc, and they do have their own interests. They have mutual self-interest. I don't, I'm not like some kind of China or Russia, shill or anything like that. I think that China and Russia, just like the United States, have their own interest. I think China and Russia, just like the United States, will go ahead and tell stories in a way that makes them look good. I'm not looking at good and bad or any of that here, so let's not go down that road.
Hmm.
But the BRICS is looking to basically, okay, so over the there was in 1913 the Federal Reserve Act was put in place at the same time as the Income Tax Act. And go ahead and look it up, learn that the Income Tax Act was never ratified by the states. Just so, go look that up. That never was ratified. Income tax technically is illegal, but if you don't pay it, to put you in jail. So you got to make your own decisions there, right?
Hmm.
So when that happened, in order to fund the Fed, they needed to get money from the people, right? They needed to take control of the future monies created by the people. And that's how the Fed can function. That's why the Income Tax Act was put into place. Signed in by Woodrow Wilson on Christmas Day, 1913. And shortly thereafter, he said that he pretty much ruined our country by doing so. I get the feeling he was coerced. And
Hmm.
I believe the whole bill was written by the bankers, such as James Pierpont Morgan and all that group. So there's a lot of history there. So move forward, you have the Bretton Woods Agreement. I think that's post World War II, where the United States dollar was turned into the world's reserve currency, and the deal was made that the United States shall not print more dollars than would exceed their gold reserves, with the dollar valued at $35. 30 with gold valued at $35 an ounce. So let's rephrase that. All of the gold that was being used to back the dollars had to stay equal to $35 an ounce of gold. So if you print more dollars beyond that, you're actually printing more dollars than gold, and then technically those dollars are supposed to go down. So what ended up happening was United States started cheating, but everybody was making money, so no one cared. The United States started printing more money, and what happened was, France would send us wine and cheese, and Germany would send us cars, VWs, whatnot. All these other countries would send us their goods, and we would send them this paper, and we
Right.
really didn't have to verify any of it. And the countries, they had their gold stored at the United States, at the Federal Reserve. I think it's underground there. It's like in that movie Die Hard 3, something along those lines.
Right.
So now, the France was involved heavily in Vietnam before we got there. France exited Vietnam. We went in, right? And wars are extremely expensive. Wars are destructive. If we could end all wars right now, I would be a happy man. I have respect for those who fight to defend our country. I'm not talking negatively about anybody involved in the wars, except for those who push the wars for their own personal gain, who are the big dogs with the big companies that make money on war. And very, very few people make money on war. And those who make money on war make a lot of money on war. And the cost is blood. And the cost is also economic problems here in the United States and everywhere else in the world. And United States and Vietnam is a perfect example. We never officially went to war, but we sent over a bunch of Marines. Many of them died, and it cost us a ton of money, and they had to print a bunch of money to pay for Vietnam. France, having been in Vietnam, got wise, and I think it was France and Germany, France first, and they decided that they wanted to go ahead and get their payments in gold instead of dollars, because France caught wise and realized that we were printing more money than we could cover with the gold, and France said, we want our gold instead of money. And Nixon said, we don't do that anymore. And he took us off the gold standard in 1971. And after 1971, we had stagflation, we had oil shocks, we had all kinds of problems, right? So Henry Kissinger went ahead and made a deal with Saudi Arabia. The United States at that time was the world's manufacturing superpower, and required a lot of oil, and we also produced a lot of oil. We are still the world's #1 oil producing nation, single nation. We still produce more oil than anybody else. However, when you combine all the other nations of the OPEC and stuff, that they produce a lot more than us, right? So anyway, we made a deal with Saudi Arabia. We will pretty much make you the leader of the Middle East, and we'll protect you, and we'll fight your opposition, and we'll protect you militarily, and we'll help you build your military, and we'll give you all a lot of business, and in exchange you will sell your oil in dollars, and you will lead the other countries who produce oil to sell oil in dollars. And what that did was that created an artificial demand for the dollar, and pretty much a lot of commodities around the world started going in dollars, not just oil. And it created a certain level of security and comfort in using the dollar. And I think you know the name of that dollar. What's that called?
Petro?
That's it. It's petrodollar. And the petrodollar is dying as we speak, but that's flashing forward to now. So for a long time that worked. However, to fund further wars, in particular wars that happened at the end of last millennium, and a few others, we just kept printing money. And then we had the great financial crisis where the mortgage-backed securities collapsed. We had to print a bunch of money for that. And then, a lot more money got printed than we'll ever know. We were told a certain amount. That's not real. And of course, after COVID, we openly injected trillions of dollars, and probably way more than that. And there's a whole nasty system of the way that dollars go around the world, the euro dollar system. Without getting too far into all that, the dollar has essentially been devalued, right? Now you have Saudi Arabia making deals with Russia and China, and you have a lot of countries that are not selling oil in dollars anymore. And there were a couple of countries that tried that early on, and those countries all shared a similar fate.
Yes.
Iran, Iraq, Syria. What's that country where Gaddafi was? Libya.
Libya.
Yeah, those countries all wanted to go off that dollar system, and they experienced, most of them, the United States coming in to invade in some way, shape, or form. I think Iran had a little protection from Russia, so they didn't get the invasion, but they got the economic war, right? And they're called the state sponsor of terrorism, and this and that and the other. And who knows what there's a lot of I'm simplifying things, right? It's a lot more complex than that. But then again, those facts do remain, right? So, however, over time, what ended up happening was Iran was the first country where we got into some kind of economic problem with them, and we confiscated their forex reserves. Right. So here's the deal: if you want to have the dollar be what everybody uses around the world, then you got to let everybody use it, and you can't steal it. So Iran was the shot across the bow where we took their forex reserves, right? And the
Hmm.
rest of the world said, "Hey, wait a minute. So if the United States has a problem with us, they're just going to take our money?" And so that's when the cogs started turning. And that's when all the rest of the country started quietly working together to develop a new system. And the BRICS is part of that manifestation. But the real death knell was when you had the Russia Ukraine situation. And when Russia had their special military operation, or you can call it invasion, depending on where you're from and what side you take, they United States confiscated their FX reserves. And
Hmm.
Russia, when you confiscate, no, Russia's a power. They're not Iran. Now, Iran's still actually a more powerful country than people know. It's a big country. It's got a lot of resources, but Russia's no joke, dude. Russia's their physical economy is legitimate. They're not a joke. And to take their money like that, the rest of the world saw that and they're like, no, forget this. So now you got, the Middle East making deals. You got, the petrodollars falling apart, and Ukraine was the critical mass moment for that. So now you're asking where the BRICS came from. The BRICS started being planned many years ago, but they saw this coming,
Hmm.
and it was a way to get away from the dollar hegemony, because people talk about how our military is so great and all that, and uh, you know, okay, people have arguments. It isn't that great. It is that great. I don't know. I've never been in the military. I did not serve, and I honor those who did. But I will say that our most important weapon, if you ask me, in my humble opinion, is the United States dollar. That's our most important weapon around the world. We exert more political pressure with that than anything else, for better or for worse. So, and the world got a little tired of that
Yeah.
because of some of the things we did. So that's where we're at. That's why we're seeing the BRICS and a lot of other things.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, when I start seeing Mexico, I guess they're planning on joining also, and I've been seriously looking at Mexico as a possible place to move to. I, you know, I don't really want to say too much publicly, but yeah, things that are going on in this country, yeah, you need to have a plan B, and that's another thing. Getting back to V, he's always talking about have a plan V, have a bug out plan. Even Gus, cuss with Gus. This guy every Wednesday, he comes on there, and I mean, this is very non-PC, but those two guys, they're talking about it. I mean, Gus has been to Italy, been to El Salvador, and he's just looking at possible places where his ingenuity, his money is appreciated. Because apparently he doesn't feel like it's being appreciated in this country right now, and I tend
Yeah,
to agree with.
Gersham's law in action, my friend.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What money goes where or where it's well. What's the law exactly? Money
I
goes.
think you pretty much said it, where it's treated the best. I don't know the words, but you pretty much said it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the way I look at it. And so, but getting back to the crypto thing, what really fascinates me too, and I've always talked to you about this thing, XRP, the Ripple, the banker's coin as they call it. Now, am I wrong? And if I'm misunderstanding this, please correct me. That because of this technology, Ripple, if Russia will be able to trade with, say, Mexico, they'll be able to take their rubles, and instantly trade to Mexico for pesos via the XRP system, the way Ripple is set up. Is this correct, or am I kind of or have I jumbled this up? But what I'm looking at here is like it's a vehicle, it's a technology behind international trade.
Yeah, it's a liquidity solution from that. That's my understanding. It's a liquidity solution. So it's already being used. They have some international trade being settled that way, or at least the liquidity is being accessed that way. The settlement is probably done separately. For example, Bank of America, they use ODL, on-demand liquidity, which is a Ripple Labs solution. So, it's in play now, and that nobody really knows what's going to happen. So, but based on the relationships that the Ripple company, and I got my buddy Dave, who, I was like, Ripple sucks,
Yeah, yeah,
you know what I
right.
mean? But then, and that's back when okay, so I do have, as you can tell, some gripes with the way things are run, but I am very pragmatic. So now, mind you, I don't go and invest in things that are terrible. If I hear something like a company is child trafficking or something terrible, I'm never going to give them any money. But
Right.
in the case of something like Ripple, okay, so it's the banker's coin, so it's the establishment coin, whatever. Can I make money on it? I'm interested. That's where I'm at with it. And the relationships and that my buddy Dave has been telling me about for a number of years, they're they are dug in with the largest banks. They're dug in with huge countries. They're at the IMF meetings. They have all the right relationships. If I was going to take a guess at which coin is going to end up, which cryptocurrency, if you will, which one of those is going to end up as the liquidity solution for something major around the world? Ripple and maybe Stellar Lumens are two choices I'm looking at, and Bitcoin and Ethereum. And those the kind of like the big four if you think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's others, but there's others. There's Cardano, whatever. I mean, but those are the four that really stick out. And my short answer to you is that it's a liquidity solution. So and that's a problem. Liquidity is an issue right now. And it's because, now Ripple is a protocol, it's not a blockchain. So, technically they could change that and make it inflationary. But as it is, it does have a fixed supply. So as long as, let's just say they even change it and they want to make it inflationary, who cares? If I can make, enough money to plot my family down in, Switzerland or Sicily or something like that, and who cares what happens later? You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm in it to win it. So, despite the fact that it may be inflationary or something like that, I'm not in it for that. I'm in it to profit, and I think that Ripple has a bright future. But the problem is, of course, it's being held back. It's being held back by the current the SEC and all that, and the fact that it's being held back and has that kind of attention should kind of tell you that they're probably over the target. If you take my meaning,
Yes. If they were not afraid, they would not be attacking it the way they are.
you said it.
And yeah, and that has always been my argument. There's something to it,
Yep.
especially And why are they leaving? Basically, most of the other major hitters out there, in the in crypto, they're not really touching. But yeah, XRP is in their sights. That tells me all I need to know right there.
Yes,
And
sir.
oh yeah, and so, but yeah, I've heavily invested in that thing, and I'm anxious to see where it goes. But I've heard anywhere from $10 up to 500. Who knows what the future brings? But does it have potential to definitely be, say, the next Ethereum? I mean, in that price range? Hell to the yes, I believe.
It's possible. I think that you have to look at the metrics and the circulating supply. And so one way, you have the total supply, of circulating supply, and there are many, many, many Ripple. I think there's a lot more Ripple than Ethereum. I would have to look it up, but there's the supply and then there's the use case. So if you need something to manage or be a liquidity solution for quadrillions of dollars in derivatives, then you can have a pretty high, total supply of Ripple, right? If you're just
Hmm.
looking for something to do like MoneyGram to Mexico, then a really high supply means that an impact on the usage is not going to really change the price very much. So that's, there is that issue. I mean, I could just look it up real quick.
Sure,
Let's
go
see
ahead.
here. Let's go to Coin Market. You want me to show people how this is done?
If you would like, sure.
I'll just go ahead and bring it up. Let's see here. Up top. All right. Share my screen. And let me know once that screen is visible to the viewers.
I see it.
You do see it. Okay, so let's do this. Coin market cap. Okay. Coinmarketcap.com. I'm going to go to Ethereum. The market cap is 215. What is that? $2 billion. And circulating supply is 120 million Ethereum. That's the circulating supply, right? But the total supply. Okay, so max is okay. So the circulating supply is the total supply. So that's that, and I think once they hit once they went over to proof of stake, I think that it became a deflationary coin. So the ether is supposed to be burned, getting smaller and smaller. So you got 120 million Ethereum. Now we'll go to Ripple, XRP. and you have 51 billion instead of 120 million.
Okay.
Right? And a max supply of 100 billion. So you've got something like, well, a little quick math on my calculator here. I mean, it's a significant difference, but in the scheme of things, it's maybe not as significant as it sounds. But you got 50, we'll say a max supply, 100 billion is that? 100 billion. Okay, so the most Ripple that will ever exist, unless they make a change, is 100 billion Ripple.
Okay.
Total supply right now is right there. Total supply is actually at 99. Okay, so about half of that is circulating. So the max supply is pretty much total supply, and it has been deflationary for a time. So that's why I think the total supply has gone down. I'm not sure, but that's what I think. So you divide that by 120 million, which is the Ethereum, and that's like, that can't be right. You got 100. No, okay, I got to do 120 million divided by 100 billion. I got to turn my calculator sideways. Okay. So it's about 1,000th. So the Ripple supply is 1,000 times greater than the Ethereum supply, right?
Okay.
So, what that means is that if Ethereum's supply increased by, or I'm sorry, if Ethereum's usage increased by 10%, then theoretically the price of Ethereum would also increase by, let's just say, 10%. There's more factors. I'm simplifying it.
Right.
But if the Ripple, that's not right either, because a percent is a percent. To say this properly, if Ethereum's supply increased by 10 or 12 million, right?
Okay.
That's a 10% increase. So by 10 or 12 million, then you're looking at, of course, that 10% rise in value just based on market cap. If Ripple's supply increased by 10 or 12 million, then you are only seeing 1,000th of that price increase, right?
Gotcha.
So, but here's the thing, the price increase and all that is also going to be based on the use case. If Ripple if they decide to use that to settle all the derivatives, then they're going to have to like increase the value of Ripple to fit it in that box. And then it might be worth 500 or 1,000 or something crazy. So it's so impossible to predict. But the fact that they have those relationships tells me that the upside on Ripple is significant despite the circulating and total supply.
Oh yeah. For whatever reason, I just got a warm fuzzy feeling about that coin, and I was like you. I said, boo-hoo. No way will I ever buy XRP, and sure enough, that has become a major holding.
Right.
But yeah, so, uh, but it's just really interesting where all this stuff is going here. Uh, and like I said, getting back to the forex, basically forex is just trading currencies, right? That's all it is. It's just like you're trading like you're predicting that one currency is either going to rise in value or it's going to go lower in value, and you're able to profit off of that depending on how you make the trade. Am I correct in this or no?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I do.
That's exactly what you do. That's the reason why they pay you the big bucks. Yeah. Okay. I was just kind of curious about that. Yeah. Yeah. But like I said, I see this stuff, and I keep. I think I told you last time you were on the show. The It was a mistake, but again, it's just one of those things. If I had to do it all over again, this is what I would have done. Woulda, shoulda, coulda, and that's like the never think that as a trader. I know that, but still, you like to kind of imagine, what could have happened. And again, when I bought my first Bitcoin at $730, you know how much Ethereum was worth?
Yes, I do. It was probably worth about $60.
No, it's worth $1.50.
Oh, okay. So that was way because that's interesting. You know what? Yeah, it hopped up to 60 in about May. So if
Yeah,
you bought it in early 2017, yeah, it was worth nothing. Yeah.
it was worth nothing. And I'm thinking, if I had taken that same money that I bought that Bitcoin with, and I invested it in Ethereum, oh my, things would have been entirely different. But you know, again, it's just the way of the world, and I'm looking for that next Ethereum. and out there. And I got a few. I don't know if there's really, if they're going to grow as big as Ethereum, but they have great use cases. I think the one's called see, was it Polygon Matic? That one right there, I'm seeing as a possibility. I don't know. What do you think of Polygon, or have you investigated it at all?
If I remember correctly, Polygon Matic, if I think that's a layer two solution, right?
I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah. So Polygon Matic is piggybacking on Ethereum.
Hmm.
So essentially, the way I understand it, and I'm not a tech guy
Yeah.
in that sense, but I think that okay, so Ethereum has a limitation, and it has high gas fees if he goes directly through the Ethereum blockchain, but the security is going to be better. Um, for example, let's talk about one that we do know about.
Go
There's a
ahead.
Lightning Network with Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So Bitcoin going through the blockchain, you can, it might take anywhere from 5 minutes to a day or two for a Bitcoin transaction to settle, based on how busy the blockchain is and how much volume is going through. And Ethereum
Right.
has that same problem, and Ethereum has pretty high fees. So what's got well, I don't know how it is now after the proof of stake. I don't know how the gas fees are, but I think I've still heard that they can be pretty high. So with the Lightning Network, what that does is it creates kind of a conduit where the transactions can be settled off chain in a much quicker way. There is a bit less security, right? So you're going to sacrifice some of that security that Bitcoin is known for. But if you want to go buy a coffee for Bitcoin, you can go do it because it'll settle right there on the spot. Well, Matic is a similar thing. It's a layer two solution. So basically, it works on top of Ethereum to settle those transactions much more quickly and I think more cheaply. That's my understanding of Matic. I'm not a big crypto use case person, but of course, once in a while I like to listen to Vitalik because he talks funny.
Yeah, and I bought a Matic. I think it was around, I don't know, 30, 40 cents. And it has its highs, it has its lows. I've just been holding on to the thing, just being patient. So like I said, I see a use case for that one. Another one I've been looking at. Well, the person that turned me onto that coin was Z. I think he had some kind of a deal he's working on with V Chain, and I bought I had a bunch of vet and what have you, and I'm
I
looking
still
at
have
that.
it.
Oh yeah, I still have it also. I still have it also, and I guess
I
it's
didn't participate in that, in his deal that he had, but I still hold a fair amount. In fact, I didn't buy my vet until everything fell apart in 2020. And
mhm.
when everything bottomed out, I went ahead and swiped up vet because I think it's got a good future.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing I've been. That's another major holding of mine also. You know, maybe I hear it's used like in the supply chain. Basically you can be able to track a product from the raw materials to the actual process and manufacturing to the shipping to the store shelf, that kind of a thing. You're able to follow that entire product and able to keep track of it. And from what I understand, I think Amazon, Walmart, and BMW were early investors in that technology for following for this, their supply chain problems and issues or needs, what have you. Um, and so at least we got some major hitters here who have starting to incorporate this technology, and that's why reason why I think it has a future personally. You know.
Yeah, relationships are everything. I do again. I'm not. I hold a handful of coins. I don't hold a lot. I like to hold some Bitcoin. I like to hold some vet. I've had vet in my wallet, and it's been staked for I don't know more than a year now, easy.
Hmm.
Whenever 2020 was right, so a couple years, 2 3 years. So it's just been gathering Vitho,
Yeah.
it's just so it's been staked and gathering, and that Vitho may be what pops up. I don't know, but so essentially vet. I think the way it works with Vitho is VTHO is when you use vet. I think Vitho is like the gas, if I remember correctly. So,
Right.
and if you store your vet in a native wallet, then essentially you get like a dividend of the Vitho. And it's been sitting in there for so long. I haven't looked at it. Who knows how much money's in there? It's probably not a lot.
Yeah.
because I only put, I don't want to say what I put in it. It's actually a decent amount, but
Hmm.
I'd say my main holding is XRP. I got some Bitcoin, and I like Monero. I don't hold any at this point. I'm kind of, I don't know. I think I'm just going to start slowly getting it, buying it, mining it, doing something. Because I think
Yeah.
Monero is Bitcoin. It's what Bitcoin's supposed to be.
Oh yeah. And I think the reason why nobody likes Monero is because it, what is completely invisible. You can't trace it.
Uh,
Is that its claim to fame?
Very difficult to trace. Like nearly, if you're doing it the right way, if you are, if you're using Monero the right way, it's nigh on impossible to trace. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not saying, look, here's the thing about it. Like, okay, so privacy is a right. I don't care what they say.
I agree.
If I mean, people don't need to know what I do in my house at night. People don't need to know what my formula is for my algorithms. And people don't need to know where I spend my money.
Right.
That's it. So I
I
don't
agree.
see it as, oh, well, you need to, you're going to do some illegal stuff. It's nothing to do with illegal. You just don't need, first of all, let's pretend I've got Bitcoin, right? Let's pretend that I've got $100 million in Bitcoin and I want to, maybe sell $1 million to buy a house, right?
Hmm.
When I break off that million to buy a house, whoever gets that money is going to see that I have $100 million in Bitcoin and they're going to have my address.
Mm.
You see? So, and it doesn't matter if I were to take that Bitcoin and break it up into 100 wallets, you can trace it back and understand that all those 100 wallets are the same person. You
Right.
just use chain analysis. So, privacy is actually a protection.
Yeah.
So I see it as a right. And anybody tries to take that away, as far as I'm concerned, is a communist.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. That's.
And not and there are I was gonna say not the good kind of communist, because basically there are no good kind.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Also, we got a city that's about 90 minutes from me that has a communist for a mayor, and that place is it went from a nice little sleepy mountain town full of tourists, and a thriving economy now to basically full of transients and drug addicts and
I
be.
know that city. Does it begin with an A and it's in North Carolina?
You are correct. Yes,
I know
you
the
are
very
correct.
one. I was looking to move there, and I heard what you were talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would move to some of the cities around it, like they're toward the western part of that particular city. But no, it's basically now it's in the top 10% of one of the most violent cities in the country. And
It uh, it, it
go
ends
ahead.
in a LLE, right?
You are correct. Yeah, and
Yeah,
there's
that was a beautiful place, man. They ruined it.
they ruined it. It's trash. It's nobody wants to go there now, and I don't blame them. And this is what that does to you. It's basically become a Detroit. Is what it's
Yeah.
become.
Yep.
And so, in just a matter of 2, 3 years.
Yep. No, I have my sister up in that area that not too far from there I told you about. She's not there
Hmm.
anymore. So
Right.
I was looking for, my wife and I went out there to check it out as we were leaving another communist stronghold out there in Los Angeles. So, I'll tell you what, communism works in groups of 300 people or less.
Yeah.
So, you want to go build like a farm, a small community where everybody shares everything, then yeah, that's where it could work. But any bigger than that, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
And even within that scenario, you're going to have things that are actually free market. It's going to happen. So you're never going to have a pure scenario, but anybody tries to push that scenario on a large population, chances are if they're pushing it, they're trying to steal something.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I think 2/3 of the cops have either quit or resigned or got fired, one or the other, off
Yep.
that police force. So it does. There's no police there. And if I was a shop owner or a business owner in that city, if I haven't gotten the hell out of there by now, a long time ago, I would be putting up the for sale sign or starting to make some alternatives because that place is it's not what it used to be.
Yeah,
And
any city, large or small, that goes under those type of rules ends up losing all their business, ends up going to become a criminal place. It's just, I mean,
yeah,
I've seen it happen where I lived.
hmm hmm like I said, do I want to live in a nice little Mayberry RFD community? Got Sheriff Griffith, there at the and Barney Fife running the show and everybody's peaceful. Hell yeah. I mean, that's the American dream, right? And that place had all the potential of being just that, and they just absolutely they just screwed it up. And I wonder, is this just a byproduct, or was this intentional to actually destroy a fantastic city? You
It's a
know,
mind virus. These people, they're convinced that what they're doing is good.
yeah,
These people are infected. It's a mind virus. That's all.
yeah, and I know I'm trying to keep this YouTube friendly, but things have are starting to come to light here, where hopefully some of these people will wake up and realize just how controlled they have been. The normies, as they call them, and
They're waking up.
yeah, and I've noticed that, and that's the only saving grace. It really is. It's the only saving grace that they realize that they're living in a fake reality, and that's what I've noticed here. That's the reason why I don't really get super upset anymore about this stuff. I used to be, I was kind of like, I wouldn't say I was an Alex Jones type, but it raised my blood pressure when I started thinking about these type of issues that are going on, and I realized that it's all fake. It's all an illusion. The money's fake. The society, the government that I'm being governed or being controlled by, it's basically fake. It's all an illusion. I
This
mean,
is actually a really good way to circle back into crypto.
you go ahead.
So here's the thing about it, right? Wealth is wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And in economics, they teach you that price is most efficiently set by the willingness to pay versus the willingness to accept.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you introduce a third party into that transaction, then you have an inefficiency, which results in a measurable loss to society.
Right.
So what you have is the best way to determine price is an auction.
Right.
So markets are literally an auction. The way that a market works is an auction. It's an auction that's coded into an order book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's people. The only people who buy are willing to buy, and the only people who sell are willing to sell, and the people setting the price are those people.
Right.
There's nothing in between in markets, right? Now, communism is opposite. Communism is the ignorance of price, the complete throwing price aside and saying, we're going to go ahead and give everybody everything, and everybody gets the same, and it doesn't matter how hard you work, and it's that their price is the mechanism that allows free markets to thrive, that allows societies to progress through commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Commerce is the reason that wars don't happen. When you've got commerce that is unfettered by governments, when you have transactions that don't have third parties, when you have businesses that are allowed to transact with one another without the legal protection of governments because they're in bed with the government, right? When
Right.
you have those things going on, then the markets are going to go ahead and be the most fair. The more in bed with the government, some big company is and they can get legally protected, the more any of that stuff, the more laws there are around that kind of stuff, the more government involvement in business, the worse it gets. The reason monopolies can exist in the unfair way that they can exist is because they make deals to where their competition gets cut down.
Mm-hmm.
Because in reality, if there were no laws around it and someone had a monopoly, it just means that they have a better product than everybody else. That's all.
Yeah.
And someone else
Exactly.
can come along and make a better product.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer in competition. That's how you progress. I mean, that's how you advance. You're always trying to, it's like that horse race, or the car race or what have you. It's competition. We need to have competition in order to become better. And I don't see why they want to eliminate that. That is a natural human instinct to progress, to be better, to always, get the most beautiful woman, get the biggest trophy. That's just part of our. That's just what we're made of. That's how
Let
we're.
me ask you something.
Yes,
If you're
please.
running the game,
Yes.
right? If you're running the game, what's the threat to you to taking your power?
If I'm running the game, what's the threat to me taking the power? Um, Somebody that's looking. Well, my competition.
That's right. Your
Yeah.
competition is your threat. So if you're running the game and you can shut down the competition, then you're going to continue to run the game. You and I understand that competition moves the world forward, but these people want to stay in power. So they use the legal system. And quite frankly, they use men with guns who will put you in cages
Hmm.
to stop the competition from happening. So, in order to stay on top of everything, they are willing to stop the progress of society. That is communism.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for example, what we have, I look at the universe as being abundant. Okay, I really do. But we are given false scarcity. Like the oil, for example, petroleum. Fossil fuel bullshit. The Earth manufactures fossil fuel, or not fossil fuel, but manufactures petroleum. It's a
There are
byproduct.
many who think that fossil fuel is not the right way to call it, and many who think it's not even coming from fossils. They think it
Yeah,
comes from somewhere in the earth. And
yeah.
scientists,
I
actual
think,
scientists, that say that.
yeah, embryonic, I think is what they call it. And yeah, it's naturally occurring. It's what's used to lubricate the land masses, the that are on this planet. It is a natural occurring resource. I mean, right now we have, I think, a 400-year supply, known supply of petroleum in Alaska at current consumption rates. 400 years. It's sitting there. That's just in Alaska. That's not the rest of the world. That's just Alaska. Okay, so we are up to our eyeballs in oil, and I've heard numerous stories about how an oil field will go dry. They'll wait about 5 or 6 years later. They come back and it's full again.
Hmm. I've heard things like that. Here's another thing about it. So fossil fuels, if you call them that, well, let's just call
Hmm.
them hydrocarbons.
Yes, I think it's good.
Um,
Hmm.
they've got yeah, I think their process is abiotic, meaning not biotic. If I'm not incorrect on that,
I think
or
about it. I think you're right.
yeah, abiotic. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing on that one. But what I'm not guessing about is they have new engines out there that are incredibly fuel efficient. I mean,
Hmm.
hundreds of miles a gallon and stuff like that, using hydrocarbons. Some of it's e-fuels. There's some other kind of solutions out there. Now, this whole electric car, that whole thing's a scam.
Yeah.
It takes more energy to build one of those cars, and
Right.
the electricity that goes into those cars comes from hydrocarbon plants mostly.
Hmm.
Comes from baseline fuels. And solar is extremely inefficient. And both of those, electric and solar, are extremely toxic when you have to dispose of those batteries when they're done.
Yeah.
So,
Lithium. Hmm. Oh yeah.
and it can't, there's no way it can handle the grid. So, and electric vehicles is a great way to just shut people down.
Yeah.
So you can't go past here, you can't go past there, because a gas vehicle, especially if you don't have a computer attached to it, you can just get in that thing and start it and go.
Yeah. I mean,
Put more gas in it.
yeah, that's the reason why I refuse to drive a newer vehicle. I mean, I have a 1999 Jeep Cherokee and I have a 2006 Cadillac, and they're both paid for. And yeah, the Cadillac is a little bit more high tech than Jeep. But the fact is, I don't think they can press a button somewhere and shut me down the middle of the interstate. You
Yeah.
know, and that's the reason why. No offense to all this new technology stuff. I think it's great. I'm not really a motorhead per se. I just, all I care about. I'm at the stage of my life where I just want to get from point A to point B in reasonable comfort. If I can do that, I'm a happy man. Okay, but
Yeah. Yeah. Why
yeah,
not? Or maybe
yeah,
what if I want to take a drive to another state? Now I want to fly the airplanes.
yeah.
I don't want to get sexually abused by the TSA person on the way through the line.
Oh yeah, I had a horror story about that crap. I'll never fly on a commercial airline ever again. I went down to Mexico. Mexico was great. Coming back, I just have to say that in the United States of America, uh, you dropped the ball big time. And then I looked to see that, I think the previous years, 200 pilots would retire or quit due to health reasons or what have you. And I think
Hmm.
last year it was like 4,000. So
Yeah.
they have a severe pilot shortage. And I'm
Well, a lot of those pilots went ahead and participated in a very experimental thing there, didn't they? And I don't
yes,
want to go there because that's not
yeah.
going to be YouTube friendly.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and we're starting to see the results of that. And
Hmm.
I just wonder, people, wake up! Seriously, wake up! I have a friend of mine. He was a Silicon Valley whiz kid, and and Statistics was his things. Was his thing. He even wrote a 900-page book on statistics. Okay, I showed him the statistics about certain things that were going on with people in the last year or two, and just like,
Oh,
oh,
after that experiment.
yeah, after that
Yeah.
experiment, and he can't put two and two together. It
Oh,
doesn't.
there's a lot of dumb, smart people.
I mean, I'm just like, and he is so entrenched in his paradigm, he will not change.
Yeah, there's a real good guy out there, um, walking Flores New Resistance, and basically one of the things he talked about yesterday, and it really resounded, really resonated with me. The people who have common sense tend to be those who have been in a fight as a kid,
Hmm.
and we're raising a lot of people that have never been punched in the face.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I agree. I agree. I feel sorry for the kids who are like about 5 years old right now. They're in this country
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
of what happened in the last few years. They had certain apparatus that people were putting over their faces,
Yep.
and because of that, they have missed out on the major development those developmental years of
Mm-hmm.
being able to read body language, facial expressions, the tone of the voice, that kind of thing. And these kids are going to be forever damaged.
Yeah, I'd like to think that there's a way around that, but under any circumstance, the development was affected, and that's been scientifically proven.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, whenever I was asked to participate in that, I would tell them, I'm sorry, I have a medical exemption. And from
That's
that
right.
point on, from that point on, they just shut their mouths and let me go on through. No, there's
My
nothing they could
medical
say.
exemption is I'm not stupid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I like to think, I like to observe and see, how things operate. But no, I tell you, we're starting to, I think we already hit like about an hour and 20 minutes. And like I said, crypto, this is more or less, this show's designed or based around radionics. It's something that I've been doing for years and what have you. And you were part of a radionic experiment back, I guess, about, oh, hell, it had to be like 4 or 5 years ago. And what it was, so everybody will think, okay, Dr. Mulder's not full of bullshit. This actually did happen. All right. At one time, did you not attend a meeting where there was basically major players around that table who were about ready to set up a crypto that was backed by gold? They already had the infrastructure pretty much worked out, planned out, what have you. And just because of a medical issue that one of the major players had, it basically kind of went to the wayside. But the fact is, did you not participate in a meeting where this was talked about?
I sure did.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this thing came out of nothing. I didn't know Cowboy at the time. I talked back and forth with him on his you know, when he was doing his trades and that kind of thing. I didn't really know him that well, and so, and I did, and all these other players I really didn't know well, but I had I had one person that sort of that knew one of the major players, and I was able to work with them. But all I did was I wanted to try and see if I could help participate in the manifestation of a serious coin that could be used by society that was backed by something real, that was backed by gold, a real gold back to currency. All right, and so that's what happened. And I turned a few dials, and you had all these major players out there in Utah sitting around the table talking about some serious ass shit. And if it had come to fruition, that would have been a major deal maker. That would have been a major player in the way things are today. And it's just like missed it by that much, and
Yeah, yeah, that was unfortunate that that one individual had that issue, that health issue.
yeah, exactly. And it's just, and I look at it, in hindsight, Cowboy, was I disappointed? Yeah, I was disappointed, but I learned a lot, and I realized I accepted it. It's not like I'm going to spend the rest of my life thinking to myself, I could have been a contender. Ah, bullshit. You live and learn, and you move on, and you go into bigger and better things. And as a result of that, it just opens my eyes to other opportunities. That's all it is. And I look at it this way: yeah, that didn't work out exactly as planned. But then again, there were some extenuating circumstances that were beyond my control. But to get to that point, I thought was just absolutely freaking awesome, absolutely freaking awesome. And again, it was just by focusing, using these machines and tuning a few dials that I was able to get all the players at that one, at that one table. And again, I wanted to thank you for participating in that, Cowboy. I really did feel honored, and I want to thank you for that. That was really a
Oh
great.
man, let me tell you something. The individuals, we don't want to obviously say who they were.
Right.
One of them is a former. No, I can't say that either. That's too obvious. One of them was a major scientist, and then ended up being very early into the development of cryptocurrency in a big way, in a humongous way.
Hmm.
Another one was one of the few people left to have a gold claim in the United States. Like an old school actual claim.
Right.
One of them was an attorney who has moved mountains in this country when it comes to precious metals and the legality around them at a state level.
Hmm.
And one of them just has gobs and gobs and gobs of money from Bitcoin.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. That's what was at the table. That's what was
It
at
was,
the table.
bro. It was. I wish he could have been there, man. It was that group of people, the vibration that was going through.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm yawning here. Forgive me for that.
Uh,
But that was something special here. That just that experience is worth any of the amount of time spent on it. So that's
yeah.
I have to thank you for putting all that together.
Well, no, it was my pleasure. It really, truly was. And like I said, it's just one of those things where, it was a great opportunity, but it showed me what the potential was. What could be done. And again, it wasn't in the cards. It wasn't meant to be. And but I accept it. And you know, it, it's live and learn. But and another thing too, I wanted a little secret here. This gentleman, Cowboy, is the he paid me. He's the very first person to, I'm going to say pay, exchanged Bitcoin for a radionics machine. The very first person was this gentleman on the phone.
Four of them to be precise.
Or, yeah. And so, everybody thinks, oh, this is woo woo and all that kind of stuff. No, it's not. And, you know, and we were talking earlier about reality. Again, I've changed my entire perception of reality here. I look at this as, I mean, I know this is, you and I, we've had some philosophical conversations in the past, and I just want your opinion on this as we close. What do you think of reality? Do you think that we're basically a holographic universe, or do you think real is real?
Both.
Okay, I can
So
accept that. Hmm.
yeah. So I mean, what's real?
Yeah.
So it's if you want to say what okay is real. Well, I mean, what's real? We don't know. Okay, so there's this whole concept you hear now of the whole simulation thing. We're in some kind of simulation, and
Right.
that's been kind of floating around for a bit. Okay, that's fine. Um, how do I properly say this? Okay. Um, I know Elon Musk did a long talk about it at one point, saying that there's a very low probability that we are in what he calls base reality. So let's say that there is a biological human being culture, and they developed, virtual reality 28 gazillion bazillion years ago, and then so that virtual reality created a new universe in which people kind of are born and lived, and then that virtual reality created a new one, and now we're in this, who knows how many iterations or permutations or fractals of this. So, I understand all those concepts, right?
Hmm.
But what I say to that is, what does it matter? Whatever the game you're playing is, you got to play that game. Now, I am not. I'm not a terribly religious person. I'm actually doing Bible study because it's interesting to me.
Hmm.
I don't follow any religion. I'm not even sure what I believe about that stuff, right? I think the Bible's interesting. I think it's like a code. Um, I think it might be telling us some things that might be going on in the background.
Hmm.
I've looked into all kinds of different spiritualities. I've been around the world physically and seen the way that people live. I've been amongst the Buddhists, the Hindus, all that stuff, right? I've even stayed in a Muslim quarter for a while. I didn't really get to know their religion, but at least I saw their way of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not, look, there's people who are far better traveled and experienced than I am, but I have seen a thing or two. Okay. I'm not trying to say I've been around the world, I've seen it all, but I've seen a few things. I think that like whatever religious belief you have depends on where you grew up, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like to really bind strictly to one and say this is it and all that. I don't know if I could do that. I think that there is something to be said for faith, and when I say faith, I don't necessarily mean it in like that biblical, sense or whatever. Maybe it is that way, maybe it's not. But I think that as long as you are, say, like meditating or connecting with the universe, or I think there's something that I think we are in some kind of a subset of another reality, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if it is a simulation or if it is holographic or whatever it is so unique and it's so perfect that it just might as well be a reality because it is one,
Yeah. Well,
you know?
exactly. And it's kind of, I think I mentioned to you a long time ago about the Mandela effect, songs and that
Oh
kind of
yeah.
thing changing. And I'll give you an example. This is a quick example. Cuba, of all places, Cuba. Matter of fact, I was talking to a guy who's a computer scientist. He's also a professor at a major university in North Carolina, and he's a good friend of mine. And we were having this conversation, and he said, "Hey, Brad, have you seen this? Have you seen Cuba?" I said, "Oh, yes. Why? What's going on with Cuba?" And he said, "Oh, this damn thing is about the size of Florida, and it's like right next to the Gulf of Mexico. What the hell do you remember?" I said, "I remember it being about twice the size of Puerto Rico and about 90 miles south of Key Largo. That's where I remember it, the bottom of the Keys, almost 90 miles due south. That's where I remember it." And he said, "Well, that's how I remember it. This damn thing is like, this is massive." And no, somebody else was saying, "Hey, have you seen Italy?" And I said, "Yeah, I've seen Italy, yeah." And they said, it's like moved. And, because at one time it used to be, if you looked at it, compared to the Mediterranean Sea, it was basically north south. If you look at it now, it's at a 45-degree angle. And I know a guy for a fact who fought on Sicily in World War II, fought on Sicily, World War II. He said, "Well, we had to go about 30, 40 miles to get to the tip of the boot of Italy before we could go to there, and like a major battle in World War II at Anzio, I think is he's always talked about Anzio in Italy when he was during the war." And he said, "Well, Sicily was like 30 miles from the tip of the boot." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, you look at it now, you can swim to it. It's moved. The entire continents have moved." And you're a big health guy. You're a big health guy. Where do you remember the kidneys being?
Kidneys are towards the back. They're above your waist, kind of, and they're on either side of your spine in the back. Maybe not. They're located a little closer to. I'd say they're more distal, I think is the word. I forget the actual terms,
Like love
but
handles, like basically the area of the
but
love
in but
handles.
deeper than the love handles, though, in more kind of like in between. I'd say central, in between the spine and the love handle, like in between the spine and the very outer edge of the love handle. That's how I remember it. Um, and probably about 3 inches, maybe four above a waistline.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's about right. That's about right. That's where I remember it. And because they used to have a thing in boxing called the kidney punch, which was illegal because why? The kidneys were exposed. Okay,
Hmm.
they were not protected by anything, and so, well, if you look at anatomy now, the kidneys are in they've changed position. They're protected by the lower two ribs of the rib cage now. They're they're changed in position. And I looked, and I had three MDs look at this, and they said, "That's not the way I remember it in medical school." Hell, they had to dissect bodies. They knew how these, they knew what to expect and where it was located at. And they said, "That's not the way I remember it." And I was referring to, I think it was um, a major university out of what the hell was it? Out of Massachusetts. What the hell? Name escapes me. But
You say
anyway,
MIT?
Yeah, not MIT. It was a medical school out of Massachusetts.
Uh,
Uh,
UMass? No, medical. Oh,
uh,
I'm
shit.
not sure.
Harvard. I think Harvard Medical.
Harvard. Oh, Harvard.
Harvard,
Yeah, yeah.
Harvard Medical School. And yeah, I was referring to their current anatomy books, and they're like, that's not the way I remember it. And so the point of this is things have changed. Physical reality has changed. Matter of fact, you're studying the Bible now. I don't know how it is with other versions of it, the King James version, but you'll see things. This is pretty common. Okay, what animal do you remember lined out with the lamb? It was Isaiah 11:6. What do you remember? There was another animal besides the lamb in that verse. Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Okay, one reality, it used to be the lion will lie down with the lamb. Okay, that entire verse is changed to the wolf will dwell with the lamb. Okay,
Wolf and the sheep. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, wolf and lamb. And then there's another thing on the Lord's Prayer. Okay, what do you remember? Let's see. Forgive us our blank as we forgive blank. What do you remember?
Trespasses.
You remember trespasses? Okay,
I was raised Catholic.
okay. I think it's changed back. It may go back and forth, but now in this reality, the King James version, that's how I remember it, was trespasses. It's changed to debts and debtors.
Well, here's the thing about that. Mandela effect is interesting, and there's probably something to it. I think a lot of it also, like for example, with your maps, and I'm going to be devil's advocate, so forgive
Sure.
me for kind
No,
of be doing
please,
that to you.
please.
Um, One of the thing about maps is that when you're looking at a map, it's flat. The
Mm-hmm.
Earth is not flat.
Correct.
The Earth is the Earth obviously is a sphere. So when you're looking at a flat map, it's called a Mercator projection,
Right.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like for example, countries like Africa or continents like Africa that are so huge, they don't look as big on that as, say, the United States.
Yeah,
But in
Greenland.
reality,
Yeah.
it's way bigger.
Right. Right. I.
The North America, I should say.
Oh, I.
So, those two continents. So the Mercator projection and the way that things are projected, um, I mean, it could be that the land masses moved. It could also be that the way we're doing maps changed. When it
Okay.
comes to uh, what was some of your other examples? The kidney thing, I can't speak to it. I just happen to think that's where my kidneys are.
Right.
Is there's that. When it comes to what's the other one? The Bible thing. That's one thing that's tricky because the Bible, a lot of the old Bible, I think was written in Aramaic. I think a lot of the New Testament was written in Greek. And then of course it was translated from Greek to, I think, maybe Latin, and then from there to whom knows how many languages to English, right? So those translations are definitely going to cause some difference in the way that the Bible's written. And also you're going to have different versions of the Bible based on what denomination. You have the Catholic Church, where they have books in the Bible that other denominations took out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that change in the Bible for that reason. The King James is one version. That Jehovah's Witness have their own version. That's instead of what they're saying, those guys, is that the word Jehovah is throughout the Bible originally, and it was removed and replaced with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So you just the
I.
Mandela effect is something I'm real careful about, because I think there may be some real world examples of that. I'm not denying it at all. I've had some personal examples where I'm like, man, I swear that this was this way,
Mhm.
and it's not that way anymore. I've had where kind of like, it's like, I don't know, did somebody go back in time and change things, but I didn't. I'm not part of that timeline. Like, I've had those thoughts, and it
Right.
seemed awfully real to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you another example. I understand where you're coming from, but if you look on a globe, it's the same way. I've already done this.
You've
I
been
had,
through it.
yeah, I've been through it, and it's the same way. And I remember at one time when South America was almost directly south of North America. If you look at it now, South America is drifted west, or excuse me, drifted east, and the west coast of South America is almost parallel with the east coast of North America. And also, if you look at Central America, I know people who have actually been to Panama Canal. They have actually physically been to the Panama Canal. And one of these guys, he worked for a three-letter agency, and this he's got a PhD, and he's pretty sharp cookie. And Anyway, he told me, he said, yeah, it went east to west. I said, are you sure? He said, I'm 100% positive. I was there. It went east to west. I said, look at it now. And now it's going north south.
Hmm.
Okay, it's changed.
Yeah, because the isthmus actually curves east to west, so the canal has to cross that.
Yeah, but at one time it was, and this was like a matter of 25 years. So you're telling me that the canal shifted from east west to north south in less than 25 years, and nobody knows about it. And it's also, and if you look at all the maps, you'll have that same. They'll all be the same way. It'll be north south for Panama Canal from the beginning, from the beginning of its construction to present day. They will all have these changes to them. And I mean, I'll give you a big one. This is the one that really kind of got me because I knew something was wrong. I was wondering, is it a cloudy day or something? What's going on here?
Uh,
When I was a kid, what color was the sun? When you were a kid, what color was the sun?
uh, I want to say it was like a light yellow colored.
Golden yellow, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. It's real bright. I don't know. You don't ever
Yeah,
spend a lot of time looking
like
directly at the
staring
sun,
sun.
right?
Okay, well, when I was a kid, all you had to draw the picture of the outside while little Johnny's out playing in the swing set. The sun would always be yellow. Well, if
That's
you look
right.
at it now,
Yeah.
yeah, and now it's white. The sun's white, and
Well, Cliff High talks about that.
yeah, yeah. And I think, and I knew about that. He just confirmed what I already knew. And he has his explanation is we're going through a different part of the galaxy, and it's more, and the sun's using more energy or something to be able to go through this part of the
I
galaxy.
think he's saying that it's like we're going through a different part of the galaxy where the sun is actually kind of colliding with a different material,
Uh huh. Yeah, and it's changing the color of the sun. So
like a
I
like
don't.
a welding fire,
Yeah. Mm.
with different elements going into it.
Right, exactly. But I will say, and getting back to the Bible, no, this is the King James version. If you go back to uh, whether it's the one that was written in 1611 to the present day, they're all going to have the same identical changes to them. I mean, the one that really got me was I knew this for a fact because I was around this guy who was a hardcore Christian, and he was talking about like when when people gather, and he always used this phrase. He said when when two or more gather in my name, you know, that's how it used to be. Now it's when two or three. It's physically changed on the page, and I don't
Hmm.
care how old the Bible is. It's physically changed. They got another one here. Don't pouring old. Don't what is it? Do not pour new wine into old wine skins. Now it's old wine bottles. And the King James Version now has the word corn as in the grain, corn, CORN, that's in there now. The word matrix is in there now. Unicorn, that's just among few of the words that are inside of it. But the reason why I even bring these up is I've just, it's one of those things where I deal with constantly, my reality constantly changes. And I've looked at it, if you don't like this reality, wake up tomorrow, it'll be a different one. And so, and so and it always seems to be. But I think people are about ready to actually go into something really new and spectacular. I'm a little bit optimistic about the world. I think people are starting to see the way things truly are, and that the people that have authority over us, where the hell did they get their authority, and why did they have authority? And I think people are starting to ask those questions.
Well, okay, so I guess it might be, let's just say we wanted to end the show. I'll do what would be my closing thoughts in that case.
Please.
Um, to put it simply, I remember distinctly where I woke up one day at university and I went through a fair amount of stress and anxiety during that time. And that's just personal stuff, right? People go through times, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't really
Right.
matter that part of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember waking up one day and the problems that were going on that I was worried about, it was kind of like on the I want to say the political side of things, like the society side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's just like it's like it never had existed. It's like those things I was worried about had never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could say, "Oh, well, that was just my perception," right? I can always kind of chalk it up to, "Hey, maybe my thinking changed overnight." But at that time, I noticed the difference, and I really felt like I woke up that day and the whole world had changed around me. That's what
Mm.
it felt like, and I
Hmm.
cannot dismiss that feeling.
Yeah, yeah. I went through the same feeling.
Yeah, so whether or not that's a psychological trick, I mean, the reason that I am where I am in many ways is because I've learned to trust my intuition.
Yeah,
And that's what it felt like to me, and I can't say that it's absolutely the case, but I also say it still feels that way, so,
yeah.
you know.
Well, yeah. I tell you, and like I said, I'm glad we were able to close the show like this because, you know, it's good to kind of get this out there and get people to think. Yeah, you may agree or disagree. That's fine, but at least think about it. At least
Mhm.
look at your reality. Look at the way things are. And again, the one thing that has control over everybody is money. It's finances. That has when I sell these machines, cowboy, I would say a minimum of 60 to 70% of these people is financial related, whether it's new job, they want to win the Powerball, or they want to get a new house. It could be, anything, but it's always money related, always, uh, you know, financially related type stuff. And
Mhm.
so, and I hopefully we've given people some ideas here because really, I think what you've done here with Algo Factory, I think it's brilliant. I really do. It's brilliant. Yeah, it requires dedication, but what you're doing there, basically, you're offering a college course in trading. That's what you're doing, and you're teaching people how to make their own tools. On top of that, am I right?
Well, I hope that that's what I'm trying to do, and hopefully I'm able to succeed. I do think that, I think that's the opportunity. I think it's in the economy, the economy changing as quickly as it's changing. The AI taking over a lot of jobs. You got some other things that fit into that category of, you know, job security is going the way of the dodo, just
Mm-hmm.
because of the way things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we got to do is we got to find some kind of exploit. And as much as the communists want to take over and ruin the market, that will ruin everything, and the market will prevail. I think that's part of what we're seeing right now. I think we're going to see a lot of things change in the world. I think we'll see a decoupling of a lot of countries that are friends right now. I think we'll see deals made to where commerce will continue. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we might see a time in this country where we have to retool, and that might take 10 or 20 years. And so during that time, the only chance we really have is, like, for example, they're firing all kinds of people. AI is taking over their jobs, but those companies are still around. Those
Mm-hmm.
equities that run those companies are still around. The currencies that allow those transactions to happen are still around. And I don't see that changing. So if I can develop a way to take advantage of what's still going to be around, then that's what I'm going to do. So that's why I went this direction. Now, what I'm going to do, and you and I can talk about this in the background, is I want
Sure.
to get into physical production. I've got family in that business that are been doing it forever, and I think we're going to need to rebuild this country once everything falls apart. And I think that's going to be based on physical production of items. So you and I can talk in the background. Maybe your radionics can have a play in that.
Oh, yes, I would love to discuss that with you. I'm looking at that myself, and I mean, hell, just being able to produce screws, common, everyday, normal screws. That would be the
Hmm.
difference between a piece of machinery running and not. That would be the difference between constructing a house or a piece of furniture or
Hmm.
not.
Yep.
Just common little basic things, and
Basic things. Yep. That we're buying from
it's
somewhere else right now.
exactly, exactly. All right, my friend. Well, hey, it's been one hell of a show. And I mean, really, and you really brought your A game today, and I really do thank you, sir, for your time
Well,
on this. And what can I say? All right. Is there any other closing thoughts? Oh, by the way, we're going to have the link to Algo Factory. Please check this out. Look at it. Don't be intimidated because if you feel like, oh, this is a little bit above your head, hell, find somebody that you feel might be technically more apt at designing an algo, putting together an algo for you or what have you. I mean, join forces, create your own team, if you have to, and make a. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to take away subscriptions from you, Cowboy, but I'm just saying, I want to see people, they feel like, hey, I don't have a certain talent. Well, you got talent. You may not be have the right talent for a certain type part of this job, but you do have talent. Get together. With create a mind trust here, and start setting together a group where one for all for one, and start getting involved in this trading because I'm going to tell you, it has been a life changer for me. It really has. I've done things with it, and I know it works because I've done it myself. And so,
I've taught people of all levels. So if you know basic math, if you know how to read a chart, that's the key. So once you get, I say basic math, I'm saying like maybe algebra. If you know how to read a Cartesian plane and X, Y, if you know how
mm-hmm,
to do that, and
mm-hmm,
that's pretty, most people been through algebra. Most people can have done a graph. If you do that and you have the desire and you have the willingness, 'cause here's the thing about trading, and I'll say this as my final blurb.
please.
If I were to do a video on every basic aspect of trading, it'd be like 10,000 videos. It's
Mm-hmm,
just it's such a broad thing, but you don't need to know all that. Like what happens with trading is you get into the very basics, which we do provide. There's going to be some lingo that you need to kind of learn. That's just by immersing yourself. That's just by going to those live sessions if you can make it. It's by watching them afterwards if you can't. It's by going through those classes. It's by asking questions. We're in there 24/7. I'm in there answering questions at midnight because oftentimes I'm up trading the European session. We'll now a lot of times somebody asks me a question and I'm like, hey, go look for it, like ask YouTube. I might just say like, hey, try to Google it because if I really were to answer every basic question, I'd just be answering questions all day. And I'm really encouraging people to take advantage of their resources and do that. And sometimes that might make me seem a little bit gruff. But the reality is, if you want to be a trader, you got to want to go out and get it. And
yeah,
you got to be able to take advantage of your resources. But if I don't have the answer for you right there, I will point you in the right direction or I will tell you where you can look. But anybody with that basic math and anybody with the desire and quite frankly, the work ethic can put this together. An algorithm is nothing to be scared of. It's just a trading method. Anybody who trades uses an algorithm. Tiny uses an algorithm. This is not above you, people. As long as you get that basic math, you're good to go. We'll do the rest. We'll help you do the rest. And that's what I got to say about it. And use that link. There's going to be a link in the description that Brad's going to put in there for us.
oh, fantastic. All right. Well, once again, Cowboy, thank you for your time, and I really do appreciate your help on this, sir. All right.
Hey, anytime, man. Pleasure's mine.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that's enough for today. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you were able to learn something here because I definitely did. All right, have a good night. Bye.